start with Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sarvayam Sati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to our daily morning Srimad Bhagavatam study. So, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and today we are discussing verse number Canto 2, chapter 2, and we're going to discuss verse number 19 today. Thank you, Prabhuji, for sharing the verse. Verse 19. Itham munistu paramed Vijnana Drigvirya Surandhitashayah Swapashninapi Dyagudam Tatonilam Sthaneshu Satchunnamayej Jitaklamaha. Word-to-word translation. Itham, thus by Brahman realization, Munihi, the philosopher, tu, but, uparamit, should retire, vyavastitaha, well situated, vijnanadrik, by scientific knowledge, virya, strength, surandhita, well regulated, ashayaha, aim of life, swaparshnina, with the heel of one's foot, apidya, by blocking, gudam, the air hole, tataha, thereafter, anilam, life air, sthaneshu, in places, satsu, six primary, unnamayet, must be lifted, jita klama, by extinguishing material desires. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in the absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which the stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the six primary places. Would anyone would like to read the purports, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I can.
Thank you, Mataji.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are many Duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman and yet are unable to conquer material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.54, it is clearly explained that an absolutely self-realized soul becomes completely aloof from all material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the five elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical vehicles, and by such tiny advancements in material science, the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavors in less than a second. The well situated self or Brahman realized soul perfectly understands that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is the all powerful Vasudeva and that he, the self realized living being, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. As such, his constitutional position is to cooperate with him in all respects in the transcendental relation of the served and the servitor. Such a self realized soul ceases to exhibit his useless activities of attempting to lord it over material nature. Being scientifically well informed, he fully engages himself in faithful devotion to the Lord. The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to 6 places: the navel, abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of bodily exercise. Concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise of the life air. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. So this chapter 2 is basically focusing on Paramatma realization, which is understanding of the Supreme Lord as a super soul residing in the heart of every living being. And in this chapter, Shukdev Goswami is describing how, by yogic process, a sincere practitioner can perceive the Lord within the heart and ultimately attain liberation. So some of the key themes of this chapter has been basically progressive stage of meditation, how one should progress from meditating on the Virat Rupa to the localized Paramatma, super soul. One should progress in this way. Also, the next theme is renunciation and detachment, how a yogi minimizes his material needs and then corresponding distractions. And next theme is described as the actual process of yoga, which is the control of the air, which is a central practice in Ashtanga yoga for spiritual elevation. And a focus has been on this verse, on this part as well, in today's verse as well. And then how the Supreme Lord's presence in the heart is the ultimate object of meditation. So today's verse is describing how a yogi, having attained realization through scientific knowledge and detachment, should withdraw the life through yogic techniques and exit the body in a very, very controlled manner. So this verse especially marks a technical and a spiritual culmination of the yogic processes described earlier in this chapter. So it outlines the final stage of Ashtanga yoga, where a perfected yogi, free from material desires, consciously exits the body by directing the life air upwards through the various chakras that exist within the body. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport emphasizes on many key points here. So first point Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, especially in the first paragraph, is how the true Brahman realization is not just merely theoretical, it must result in freedom from material desires. And Prabhupada, was mentioning that, the Duratmas, or so-called, self-claimed spiritualists, they claim to be self-realized, but they remain entangled in the material desires, which is a clear contradiction. In Bhagavad Gita 18:51-53, a similar theme has been described. The translation goes like, being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving the object of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who is always in trance, who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship and peaceful, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. So basically we see so many qualifications is needed to be self-realized through this method of practicing yoga. It describes the quality of the person who can attain this Brahman realization. Basically, When one is purified intelligence, he keeps himself firstly in the modes of goodness, because modes are prevalent there. As soon as the living entity came in contact with the material body and was bound and then was put in this material world, we were exposed ourselves to the three modes of nature. So the yogi, by intelligence, purifying intelligence, firstly tries to keep himself in the mode of goodness. And in this way, one becomes the controller of the mind and can stay in trance. In this way, the yogi will not be attached to objects of sense gratification. He can become free from attachment of free from any attachment or any hatred for any object or activities. And such person, a detached person, preferably lives in a secluded place because if he's in association of people, attachment and aversion will automatically follow, because he knows that he lives in a secluded place so that he doesn't get attached to anything or averse to anything. And then he also does not eat more than what is required. He controls the activities of his body and mind. He has no false ego. He does not accept the body as self. So basically, understanding that we are not the body, we are the soul. That's the paramount understanding or knowledge one needs to have before one progresses on the path of this yoga. Nor he has desire to make the body fat by accepting strong or accepting any material things. The yogi is satisfied that what is offered to him by the Lord, and he never gets angry in the absence of sense gratification, nor does he endeavor to acquire any sense objects. Then, when he is completely free from this false ego, he becomes non-attached, he becomes detached to all the material things. And in that stage, that is the stage of the self-realization or Brahman. That is the stage called Brahmabhuta. When one is free from the material conceptions of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. So this is explained that one is following this path of self-realization, this Brahman realization through this yogic, through this Ashtanga yoga process. These are the qualifications. Now, we have heard this, and we can also meditate how possible this is in today's world. Can we live in a secluded place? Can we avoid association of people in this place? It was possible predominantly in the early ages, especially in Satya Yuga, when the recommended method of realizing Lord was through meditation predominantly. People used to meditate for 10,000 years, like Kardama Muni. They used to live for 100,000 years, and they could easily meditate 10,000 years, which is 10% of their life, and realize Supreme Lord if successful. But in today's life, we can ourselves think, our mind is so flickering. We are being bombarded by advertisements, and there are objects of sense gratification lying everywhere. We have to deal with so many people. How possible it is to follow this? How practical it is to follow this process? So we can all think about that. The next theme which Prabhupada focuses on the purport is that the false ego and desire to material or desire to control or to lord over material nature is the root cause of our bondage, and how a spiritual soul understands their position as a servant of Supreme Lord, and they act accordingly. So basically, false ego binds us, but then understanding our true identity as being servant of Lord actually liberates us. So Srīmad Bhāgavatam mentions this very, 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 very wonderful shloka. Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandver vimukta sukha dukkha samner gachanti amuda padamavyayantat. And the translation goes like, those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from dualities of happiness and distress, and who are unbewildered, know how to surrender. These people know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, and they attain the eternal kingdom. So basically what it means is that the journey of surrender to Lord starts with humility or lack of pride. As soon as we are caught in the illusion of pride, thinking that we are the controllers, the owners of the world around us, it actually becomes nearly impossible for us to genuinely submit ourselves to will of Krishna, to surrender ourselves to Krishna's will. And what does submission means? Submission means being Krishna Das, not being Maya Das. When we are serving our mind, our body, our senses, or other people, we are becoming Maya Das. But when we are serving Krishna and his devotees, we can become Krishna Das. And what's happening in these days, we can see in our own lives, as soon as a child is born, he's brought up with an intent that, okay, he needs to be educated, he needs to be trained in a way that one day he grows up and become a rich person or an educated person or a respected person or a strong person or an athletic person or a good public speaker, and so on and so forth. That's how people are bringing up their children, if they have the means to bring up their children. And why are they doing that? So that eventually when their children grow up, they can become controller of the world or the mini world around them. Of course, no one can become the controller of the whole world, but they can become the controller of their of their family, or their employment, or their local suburb, or the council, or whatever local area of influence one has. So that why they want to become the controller? So that they want everyone to serve them. They want them to their children to become masters, so that everyone around serves them. And this is the recipe of disaster, because by doing this, they are instilling a disease of pride in this coming generation with this consciousness. Kunti Maharani says very wonderfully in her prayers, Janmaishwarya Shruta Shribhir Edamana Madhapuman Naivarhati Abhidatum Vai Twamakinchanam Agocharam. It says, O Lord, only those can approach you who are materially exhausted. Anyone who is on the path of material progress or the path to improve one's parentage, opulence, higher education, and beauty cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So basically, who cannot approach the Lord? One who is after Janma, higher birth, Aishwarya, opulence, Shruta, knowledge, or Shri, beauty. So why? Because if one gets all these things, or even one of these things, one will definitely get pride. And this pride is a very, very powerful but subtle delusion. It convinces us that we are the center of everything, even though actually, our life in material world is actually fleeting. We are actually depleting our age every second. As we are breathing in and out, we are losing the number of breaths that have been allotted to us in this lifetime. We are heading closer and closer to death. Even then, in this precarious state, we still feel that because of this pride, we are the center of everything. Every second our body is going closer towards death. So real knowledge in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita helps us see through this illusion. I was just reflecting on this statement, and I was thinking, actually, throughout my life, people have told me about mathematics, English. My parents might have told me about morals of how one should deal with family and friends, but no one actually taught us about what's our real identity in life, and how we should aspire for things but not get proud about them. But there was no course in school that was teaching humility. So only when one read Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, they understood the impact of pride, the importance of humility. So all the scriptures are actually giving us real knowledge, real unadulterated knowledge, the knowledge that will be actually used in our life and thereafter as well. So all these scriptures, they are revealing that we are not the masters of material nature. They reveal that the Supreme Lord is the master of everything. He is the controller. He's the Ishvara. And when we let go, understanding all this, our need to be honored or recognized, when we stop clinging to the idea that the world revolves around us, we actually create a very good space around us for us to surrender to the Supreme Lord, to His will. So most of the world's conflict and confusion, if we see it actually coming from the false sense of ownership. We see most of the wars. Why are they fought? They are fought for lands, identity, wealth, food, ideology, or religion, or things like that. We are dividing the lands. We are creating boundaries. We are forming identities around nations and families. We are claiming things are ours and forgetting that everything actually belongs to Supreme Lord. So sometimes we can think, oh, why, what if there was a world without any borders where people can flow easily from one part to the other? Such a beautiful world that would be. But if we see for ourselves, are we open to, in our own house, putting our fences down so that the neighbor's dog can come in? No, because we want to protect our space, because we want to protect our identity, that I am the owner of this place. So this is the consciousness of living entities, and that's actually further expanding towards the same consciousness towards creating councils or states or countries or even planets at some point, after some time, at some stage. So this is our consciousness. So this is the attachment that is binding us to material world. But the worst thing about the attachment is that it actually clouds our understanding of who we actually are. Once we are feeling comfortable about a certain space or having certain abilities, Janma Ishwarya Shruta Shribhir, it's clouding our intelligence because that makes us feel we are the masters of something. So to move forward, we must begin to untangle ourselves from any false association of our identities. We need to understand our true identity, which is being Krishna's servant. Jivera Swarupahaya Krishnera Nityadas. And this clarity, as this clarity deepens, we will naturally rise above the dualities that we face in the world, the pleasure and pain, the success and failure. And what we will see is that in that inner state of that balance, of inner state of that wisdom, in that inner state of that sama, that equality, surrender not just becomes possible, it actually becomes very, very natural. When we are not hankering towards things, where we are not attracted to attachment and aversion, the surrender naturally happens. So if we have our identity right, actually everything falls into the place. So as Bhagavad Gita in very, very nicely mentions in chapter 2, that when we focus on objects of senses, we develop attachment. And from attachment, lust arises. And if the lust is satisfied, greed arises. If the lust is not satisfied, anger arises. If the object we are hankering for, we have it, but the other person doesn't have it, we develop pride. But if the attachment with the object we are hankering for, we don't have it, but the other person has it, we develop envy. So no matter what we do, we are developing one or the other anartha as soon as we are developing this lust. If it gets satisfied, it's a problem. Not satisfied, it's a problem. Someone has it, it's a problem. If we have it, it's a problem. So this lust is a key problem. So we have to protect against ourselves from this lust in the first place. And the lust depends on our consciousness. So for example, if we go to a supermarket and we see wonderful box of blueberries, I love blueberries. And we see those blueberries and just think, oh my God, these blueberries look so beautiful. I just want to, buy them and I want to devour them. And, they feel they will be so tasty. They'll give me so much pleasure. This is lust because it is for me. But if we see the same box of blueberries and we think, wow, such a beautiful blueberries. And you know what? Krishna will love them today. Let me buy them and then wash them nicely, offer it to Krishna with tulsi, and Krishna will honor it and Krishna will accept it. And then if Krishna willing, we might also get some prasadam. And then if we get some prasadam, we'll honor it. So that is love. So it's the same box of blueberry that we are watching, but it's the consciousness that is different in the first and the second case. And that's a difference between, very simple difference between lust and love. So, and this is the different, that's come from the understanding of our identity. If we understand that we are always servant of Krishna, we'll approach each object from this purified consciousness that it is meant for Krishna's enjoyment, not our enjoyment. Let's say tomorrow morning, if I wake up and I falsely convince myself that I am the king of the world and I'm immortal, I'm supremely powerful, and I go with that consciousness, what will happen? Firstly, I'll think if I'm the king of the world, I should have all the opulences, I should getting all the services to the best degree possible. Then firstly, why I need to get up so early in the morning? I should not need to get up in the morning, but I should have people to work behind me. Why I have to go to office? I should not need to go to the office. why I'm serving an employer, why I'm serving my family members, why I need to make a living if I'm the king of the world. And if I'm immortal, why I'm getting tired after doing small amount of movement, why I'm aging, why I'm like getting affected by diseases. So, we'll be miserable thinking all of this. But actually, if we see, it's not the actual problem that's happening. The real problem was started when I falsely convinced myself that I'm the king of the world and I am immortal, which is neither true nor possible. So basically, thinking the unthinkable, imagining things, and getting our consciousness affected because of that, of those false identities, is the root cause of the problems in the first place. But instead of that, if every morning if I get up and I think, I am servant of Krishna and his devotees, I'm very thankful for this life Krishna has given me. I'm really thankful for this day Krishna has given me. And then every day when I'm waking up, I'm doing, everything from waking up to getting ready to serving my family, to serving my employer, to earning wealth, to using this wealth in Krishna service, everything actually becomes very natural and pleasing. And even if I age, even if I get disease or if I die, I can think, it is okay. I'm servant of Krishna, and I have full faith my master will look at me, will look after me. I'll do my best to maintain this body, to use this body in Krishna's service. But at the end, it's Krishna's will, and I surrender myself to Krishna's will. And even if Krishna wants me to die, he must have some other plan for me after this life. So this is the power of the pure identity. If we reflect all our problems in our life, either the adhyatmic problems, the problems of body and mind, the adhibhautic problems, the problems caused by others, or adidevi problems, the problems caused by demigods, they all are because of lack of clarity of our identity. And it also happens that throughout the day, our consciousness also varies. So it's not that, I realized today in this moment that I am servant of Krishna. But what we'll realize is we'll forget about this in some time. Our consciousness also varies throughout the day. Like in the morning, when we are chanting, our consciousness is very good. And we remember to some degree that we are servants of Krishna and we are asking for a service, if we chant sincerely, of course. But as day progresses, sometimes we remember, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we think we are the masters because we are getting served by some other people. We are employers. We are always getting entangled. And then when we are at the temple, either taking darshan of deities or serving the guests or devotees and cleaning pots, or our consciousness of being servant of Lord is actually very, very, really high. Our SQ, our spiritual quotient, is really high. So what we learn for this is that we need to expose more and more ourselves to these devotional activities. And whenever we are doing this service sincerely, we are getting our identities right, at least during the time of doing that service. And when we are doing this service, we are engaging our senses in Krishna's service, not our own, not for our own sense enjoyment, which is rishikena sevanam bhaktiruchyate. So the next part of the purport describes the yogic process of prana control and how it is described as a mechanical aid to spiritual perfection. But also devotional service is the ultimate superior and is ultimately more superior and more effective. So similar example is given in the episode of Sati. When Sati quits her, Sati is wife of Lord Shiva, when Sati quits her body, this yogic process is described, how she raised the airs in her body through the chakras, from the abdomen to the navel, to the heart, and to the throat, and to the eyebrow, and then to the cerebrum. And then basically that's the sum and substance of practicing yoga. But before practicing these sitting postures, we need to first attain sense control. We need to attain controlling these material desires. So Prabhupada says that no one can attain the perfectional stage of such yoga in this age just by doing sitting posture. This is no more or less than a gymnastic practice. The yoga practice which is described in Keshava Shruti is actually showing how one can control the living force according to his desire and transmigrate from one body to another body, which is basically in another space. So this yogic practice was actually meant as a process of realizing the Supreme Lord, so that one can get liberated. But today's age, this yogic process is just been restricted to physical exercise. It does have benefits. It definitely has benefits, and one should use this to keep the body and soul together. But just by doing these exercises into this age, one will not be able to transmigrate to this beyond this material world. So for this, it is highly recommended that one should practice devotional services, the 9 processes of devotional service, especially chanting of the holy name, because that's the most practical method to recognize the Supreme Lord in this age of Kali Yuga. So I had a lot more to share, but of course, time is finished, so I'm going to stop here. So yeah, I'll request devotees if they have any questions or comments they would like to add. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Just a quick, to share something that I've just recently found out about children in Japan. From grade 1 to grade 3, they have been taught how to be a good citizen. In other words, how to share things, how to be part, like doing things like, normal things, like instead of teaching them maths, English, and all that sort of thing. They do get a little bit of lesson, but mostly how to be good citizens in their community, and humility and good values, morals, and all that. And it's such a beautiful thing that's stuck in my head, that's what the children needs to start their life, to be able to end spirituality as well. They've been taught all that before they even start their journey after year 3, I suppose, and then they learn everything else. So it's a beautiful way for children to start their life as in a setting like that. So education, and I think spiritual education, part of the curriculum, is such a wonderful thing, and teaching them the values of life. And that's what they're doing in Japan. So that's lovely to hear. At least one country is doing something right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for sharing that. I also agree. I've heard very good updates on Japanese education, also how they make their children clean their classrooms, so cleanliness is taught. And all these things are really good because they are pushing the children slightly towards the mode of goodness, of course, but that itself is not enough. We also needs to introduce spiritual education because eventually they need to understand how to control material desires as well. And for example, I saw somewhere some information like how children in Netherlands, they are even teaching Bhagavad Gita as a curriculum course. So that's another interesting thing that, it's been taught. Bhagavad Gita is starting to be taught in some European countries as a textbook, but not in countries where it came from. So that's very interesting to note. But yeah, good observations, Mataji. Thank you for sharing.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I also reflect on the class today that when I was young, when we're in my generation, like 80s, we have this curriculum of GMRC. It's called Good Manners and Right Conduct. So we learn, teachers teach us how to be helpful, and we do cleaning our classroom, we do cooking, and we do gardening. So on that era was more respectful and more helpful and initiatively. But this new generation was different. I saw my kids was different brought up. So it was really nice to reflect as that it's nice to go back in old ways.
Absolutely,
Thank you,
Mataji. Yes,
Prabhu.
of course. Thank you for sharing that experience. So yeah, I think it's very difficult. We cannot sometimes change how the schools are functioning in today's world, but what we can do is use our temples as a way to spiritually educate our children, because when we bring our children to the temple, they also get the chance to also, behave with devotees nicely, serve devotees nicely, also learn about spiritual education through the Sandipani Muni school at the temple, do cleaning, and this way they can develop all these qualities. But again, these qualities are not just in mode of goodness, they are pure goodness, because they're also learning spiritual education on top of moral values. So moral values can get us to a mode of goodness, but to get to more pure goodness, we also need spiritual cultivation as well. And temples are actually, which originally temples were meant to be spiritual education institutes. So that's what we need to make our temples as well. Bring our children to the temple and engage them proactively in service. Thank you for sharing that, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I know it's a bit late, but one point I want to make also, that if for our temple class school, the 2 classrooms have been paid for, and they should be coming in probably 2 or 3 weeks' time. At the same time, we also try to inculcate at least one value per term in the students. In my last class on Sunday, I mentioned that we have to be conscious first, then devotee conscious, then Prabhupada conscious, then Krishna conscious, all these in one moment. And when we follow this process of being conscious first, we will actually see around us, if there's something dirty, we have to, pick it up. Because sometimes we jump too high and we want to be spiritual, but we don't want to be clean. We want to be spiritual, but we don't want to be respectful. We want to be spiritual, but but Krishna told Arjun that you have to be a spiritual king, a spiritual warrior, a spiritual father, a spiritual, brother, whatever it is. So same thing, we have to understand that while we are trying to be spiritual, at the same time, the other qualities of modes of goodness must be definitely maintained and paid attention to. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for mentioning those wonderful points. Thank you so much. Any other last questions or comments? Thank you. Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious days, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the great
Hare-
class.
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.